At the beginning of the year, I found myself asking myself the question on the screen behind me, am I okay? I think for the first time in my life, I could honestly say the answer was no. I knew that I needed some help, I knew I needed some support, but I was really nervous to pick up the phone and say, I'm not okay, I need some help. I was worried about conversations I might have to have, situations I might find myself in, so I didn't, and I stayed quiet, hoped everything would get better, and 3 months down the line I had a big crash, and someone else ended up picking up the phone for me. And the more people I speak to about my experience, the more I realize that what I've gone through is what a lot of people go through. There's nothing unique in it. Asking for help is hard. And that makes me uncomfortable, because I now know firsthand how difficult it is to get that help when you've crashed. To see a psychologist is expensive. Medication is a very difficult thing to balance. And if you don't have access to those two options, then there's not much else. And you can be very much alone. So we need to find ways of making it easier for people to say, I'm not okay. And we need to find ways of making it easier for people to get the help that they need when they're at their most vulnerable state. So I'm going to share a little story about how we've done that in South Africa. And how our work here fits into a much bigger global community that really can change the way that therapy looks. And that is surf therapy. So my name is Conibear. I'm 36 years old. I'm from the UK. Probably the first thing you should know about me is I'm a big surfer. I love to surf. I'm not very good at it. I am British, after all. But the ocean for me it's a healing space. It's a sanctuary. If I've had a bad day at work, if I've had a bad day at home, I know I can go down to the beach, I can have a surf, and the world feels like a brighter place. So one of the first things I did when I came to South Africa in 2008 is I went down to Muizenberg and I had a surf. And I soon realized that my sanctuary isn't accessible to everyone in this country. If you're a kid growing up in a township, the beach isn't always down the road. It's not always easy to get there. So with the help of a travel company I was working for at the time called Ticket to Ride, I started a weekend surf club. And every Saturday, I'd drive over to Masiphumelele Township, just down by Kommetjie, a little city golf, and kind of bang down Kommetjie Road. And I'd pick up whoever was waiting. So I remember the first weekend, there were 3 or 4 kids waiting on the side of the road. Picked them up, we went for a surf, had a hot chocolate, had a conversation. It was really good fun. Next weekend, I went back down to Massey. Their friends have obviously told their friends, and they told their friends, and there's about 15 kids waiting on the side of the road. I'm like, okay, city golf. How is this going to work? So I did a couple of trips and managed to get everyone onto the beach, and we had a surf, and we had a good conversation. It was really good fun. The next week I drove, and I was like, okay, what's waiting for me here? And there were probably about 45, 50 people standing on the side of the pavement waiting for me to arrive. Done. What do you do then? Traded the little hire car in for a pickup truck so I could get more kids down to the beach. And this amazing surf club was formed in Massey, and it became a really, really important part of my life for several years. And the second thing you should probably know about me is I am infuriatingly curious and inquisitive. If there's something that I don't understand, I'm going to interrogate it. So the first thing I wanted to understand was, why is this blown up in Massey? Why is there this huge interest in surfing in Masiphumelele Township? So I asked, why do you come? Now the answers that I got, most of you probably expect. We can meet new people, surfing's fun, we can go and see new places, do things we never thought we could do before. But there was one answer that I wasn't quite prepared for and definitely wasn't expecting. And that was this one. We can talk, and people listen to us. And that piqued my interest a bit, because I used to get down to Massey probably about 9:30, 10 o'clock, and some of these kids have been waiting on the pavement since 7 in the morning. So they were waiting for 2 hours just to have a conversation, or just to experience what it feels like to be listened to. So then I got more curious, and I was like, okay. Started reading academic journals, started reading my friends' PhDs, started reading community crime statistics. I wanted to know, what is it like to be a child growing up in South Africa in a township today? And what came out was really disturbing. I found that kids in South African townships go through, and this is in Massey, go through up to about 8 traumatic events on an annual basis, every single year. Death of a loved one, the incarceration of a parent, witnessing community violence, physical abuse, sexual abuse in the home, 8 times a year. It took one of these types of events to push me into a really difficult space. And you have kids going through this 8 times every single year. So you'd probably expect if you've got this amount of trauma, there'd be some community response to help deal with this. So this is what I found. Massey, which is a community of 60,000 people, 2 social workers, and not a single psychologist. That is a heartbreaking statistic. If you think you've got all these kids going through all this trauma, they're reaching breaking point, they're reaching crisis point, they've got no one to talk to. It made me realize this is why kids are waiting for 2 hours on the side of the road just to have a conversation. So what do you do then? You've got this information, you've got this data, you've done this research. Do you pass the data on to someone else and hope that maybe they can do something with it? Do you pass it to government and hope that government will do something with it? Or do you do something about it? And I scratched my head and I thought, well, I've got a job. I want to go back to England maybe one day. No, I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to take action. So, 2011, I founded an organization called Waves for Change. Purely and simply, we just train local people from township communities, local young adults, to do what I was doing. Identify kids who are in need, take them down to the beach, take them for a surf, but most importantly, have a conversation. Talk about what's happening in your life, what's going on, what are some of the challenges you face, and let's work together to work out how we can cope with that. We teamed up with some local universities, some psychologists. We integrated a little bit more evidence-based to it, so we introduced some meditation, some breathing, but very simple. And we started small. So we started in Massachusetts. We trained 2 young adults, and they looked after that surf club. Then each year we've grown a little bit and a little bit. So today we have 45 people working on the coast of South Africa, engaging 1,000 children every single week. It's been a fantastic journey, and it's still going. But I'm infuriatingly curious. I'm always interrogating. So 1,000 kids coming down to the beach. What does that do? Why do you come? This is what children tell us happens when they come down to the beach. And we call it surf therapy. Have a surf, have a conversation. This is what they find. Find a safe space where they can share some feelings, can meet some new friends. They get the sense of belonging. If I think back to January and what I was looking for, when I couldn't pick the phone up because I was too scared, this is exactly what I was looking for and exactly what I couldn't find. So this is therapy in a way. What else do we find? And this is important. All these kids say they feel they achieved something. Every single person in this room knows what it feels like when you achieve something that you never thought you could do. You walk in and you think, there's no way I'm ever going to do that. I'm just not strong enough. And then all of a sudden, 10 minutes later, oh my God, I've stood up on a surfboard. You know, that sense of recognition, that sense of strength, that sense of, okay, I am someone that has worth. It's therapeutic. So then I was inquisitive again. If this is what kids are saying, what's the impact? So, last year we teamed up with a couple of universities in Cape Town, and we did a study. We took 200 children, 100 of them started our programs in January, the other 100 started in December. These were kids from the same communities, same backgrounds, and we randomly assigned them to 2 different groups. A control group who didn't get surf therapy for 12 months, versus a group that did. At the end of the trial, we were able to establish this is what being in the ocean does for us. We saw improved emotion regulation. The big data point there was kids with less violence, and kids felt more optimistic. So if you put yourself in that situation where you've had a traumatic event, you know what happens, you know what the future looks like, you know that the world becomes a very small place, it becomes quite scary. Going down to the beach, having conversations with these caring mentors, achieving something you never thought possible, optimism comes through. So what happens when this changes? So we asked about 200 parents and teachers. What do you see? Children were calmer, more engaged at school, and they were resilient to stress. Now again, if you think of therapy and you think of going to see a psychologist, what are you going for? What are the things that you want to achieve? What are the outcomes that you expect? They're all on the screen behind me. So when we talk about surf therapy, we're starting to talk about it with more and more authority. It does work. So, what's the bigger message here? Anxiety, stress, depression, these are big, big global issues. They're one of the leading causes of illness globally. You know that, I know that. The UN actually knows that as well. The UN's now made good health and well-being one of its sustainable development goals. So we need now to find alternative ways that we can promote health and well-being en masse, especially to populations who don't necessarily have the financial resources for medication and psychologists. And there's good news. The work that we're doing in South Africa is not unique. We've spent the last 2 years talking to people all around the world who are doing similar work and are actually seeing similar outcomes. So surf therapy programs are popping up all around the planet. They're working not necessarily with similar population groups. This is the interesting part. Some of them are working with Marines coming back from service. Some of them are working with young children on the learning spectrums. Some are working with young offenders coming out of jail. But in each instance, they're seeing very, very similar results. And this is encouraging because it shows that what we're doing not only works in South Africa, it is scalable, it is a solution. And there's more. Some of them are not surfers. Some of them are boxing programs, yoga programs. Some of them are skateboarders. Some of them are rally driving programs. In each instance, vulnerable people are being connected to caring adults. They're achieving something they never thought possible, and it is working. There are health outcomes coming through that you can benchmark to therapy. Here's another thing that we found. In South Africa, for us to take a child down to the beach costs 100 rand. In South Africa, for a child to go and see a psychologist costs 850 rand. This is a lot cheaper. So what's the message here? A bigger message about taking action. The more people I speak to, the more people that I've spoken to about their work, the more I realize that they're just like you and me. These are individuals who experienced something unfortunate, they've experienced trauma, they've experienced what it's like to go to a psychologist or not pick up that phone, and they've thought, there's a different way we can do this. And they've started something from nothing. And this is a global movement that is really starting to take shape. And I think that's the point of these talks. It's an opportunity to share simple solutions. So surf therapy, sport therapy if you want, is a simple solution. It does work. It's fun, it's accessible, it's impactful. Okay, we've got the data to prove it. Personally, I know as well. My therapist prescribes me running and prescribes me surfing 4 days a week. It's the best prescription you'll ever get. It floods my body with dopamine, it makes me feel good. And if I'm not getting that from surfing, or if I'm not getting that from running, I'm going to get it from somewhere else. So how I was getting that before was through physical pain, was exposure to physical pain. So I know that surf therapy works, and that's what I'm standing here today. So what happens if we share this? And that's my last ask to you guys. More people are going to know that there's an alternative way to do therapy around the world. More people are going to know that it's easier to actually pick up the phone than not. And some of the people that see this talk, they might start their own little weekend surf club, or a running club, or a sewing program, anything just to get communities active and together. Some of them might also be doctors or psychologists, and they might take this practice and they might integrate it to their national health services. It has happened, and it is happening. But that can only really start if we share. So we have the data, we know it's working. All we now need to do is share. And that's a conversation, it's a click of a button, and that's a TED Talk. So thank you very much for listening.